mean, I know you have a lot of discontent with the Democratic Party, but I've read in your blogs on runcynthia.org um, about how you was proud of Senator Obama's accomplishment about becoming the first black candidate to receive the nomination for a major party. What was your feelings on? Can you articulate your feelings on that day, and has your feelings or your admiration of that moment for Obama's accomplishment changed as the election's gone along?
Well, I think I have remained, uh, my feelings about the Democratic Party remain the same. And the Democratic Party, no matter how well intentioned the candidate might be, is still the same old party. And it has the same old values that that can be reflected in the policies that it pursues. So why is it that the Democratic majority in Congress choose to spend $702 million a day for war? Why? Why? My cousin graduated from college $90,000 in debt. It's the choice of the Democratic Party policymakers that they would spend money for war and not spend money so that young people can get a college education and don't have to be in debt. That's a choice. Nobody thinks about it or talks about it, but it's a choice. And so the Democratic Party is over here spending $702 million a day for war. And my cousin and a whole bunch of young people are over here struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to pay for college. It doesn't make sense. And that is an unacceptable choice. As I said in my acceptance speech, only a sick country would put a banker in between a student and her professor. The insurance bureaucrat in between a doctor and his or her patient. There's a sickness going on. And the people in this country have allowed this sickness to persist. I'm not going to be a part of it anymore.
I wanted to talk about the UFE. As you spoke about it as part of your platform. I wanted to get an explanation of exactly what is that comprised of.
You mean the United for a Fair Economy?
Mm-hmm.
United for a Fair Economy is a organization that does studies every year that it releases on the anniversary of the birth date of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Those studies are called State of the Dream reports. And basically, one recommendation of the United for a Fair Economy was that we need a massive plan funded that targets people of color in this country and the elimination of the racial disparities that continue to exist. For example, they found before the predatory lending crisis and the mortgage crisis, foreclosure crisis, that it would take 1,669 years to close the home ownership gap. That is, without a public policy intervention, without some elected official saying, we're going to change this, and then allocating the funds necessary in order to do it. It would take 1,600 years in order for the black home ownership rate to catch up to the white home ownership rate. Now, Congress completely abdicated in its oversight responsibility of the banks. The banks got involved in all kinds of schemes to make more and more money, and some of those schemes were illegal that involved targeting of certain people by race and ethnicity, which is illegal. and charging them more even though they had a similar credit history. Well, now United for a Fair Economy finds that it would take over 5,000 years because the damage has been so severe to black and brown communities across this country. In fact, what they found is that it would be what we've seen with the foreclosure crisis is the largest transfer of wealth in modern history of the United States. $92 billion lost by black people, $98 billion lost by Latinos. And we've yet to have a policy response coming from the Democratic Party, which is the majority in the Congress. They can if they would, but they don't, and they won't, and we tolerate it. How can we reward the people with our vote who caused the problem and then entrust them to provide us a solution? It doesn't make sense.
Now, I think the public has always had this underlying feeling that politics were crooked and maybe not serving them at their best interest. But a lot of people think that today, in particular, that it's changed for the worse. You know, even they didn't support it back then or they didn't trust it back then. Has the last 8 years changed the face of politics, or is it going further than that?
Well, I think if we look at it, it was the Democratic administration that gave us NAFTA, for example, which was an expansion of the whole globalization phenomenon that helped to offshore jobs and deplete the jobs that were, particularly manufacturing jobs that were available in this country. And so you've got complicity with the Democrats from a long time ago. And, you know, I didn't think that U.S. policy toward Africa could get much worse than it was under George Herbert Walker Bush. And then Bill Clinton came along, and sure enough, it got worse. So, you know, what we have is, I believe, the ability of people, regular, ordinary people, to impact the system, but they choose not to. And when they choose not to, what they basically do is they choose to leave a system of power and money in the hands of the bad guys. I say, let's wrest that power and money from the bad guys and let us use it for good things.
Okay. So back to your policy. I'm curious to know what is the Greens Party, stance on energy and the whole gas crisis that's going on. What solutions would you propose or do as president?
I do need to talk for half a second about the things that we are for. We're for a livable wage. We're for a single-payer health care system. We're